Yeah, it's right there.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate Rabbi Sachs' 10th anniversary at Beth Ha'am. It is wonderful to have you with us tonight to honor him. Now, whether you will thank us for the entertainment portion of tonight's festivities is another matter. So welcome to the Roast and Toast of Rabbi Sachs. From this title, you may surmise that we struggled with what to call this event. While we knew we wanted a joyous occasion that showed our appreciation for his 10 remarkable years as a spiritual leader, we couldn't think of what to call it. We needed to have a catchy Jewish title, one closely connected with Rabbi Sacks in some way, since Rabbi Sacks loves to cook. We immediately thought of food. What Jew doesn't? Our first idea was to call it a brisket. We could honor our goodies and their delicious cooking, but my wife warned me that it sounded more like something that a mohel would carry around. Thanks for that tip, honey, which is more than I can say to the man I met on the 8th day of my life. Then we thought we'd advertise the event as a pot roast, again going with the cooking theme. Alas, we realized that Maine is a state with legalized cannabis, and people might get the wrong idea that would be doing. Though it might have helped with our major budget shortfall, the buzz would have been great, and the joint would have been high. But staying on that cannabis theme, our next thought was an evening of fear and loathing, an event that would have made Hunter as tense and happy, but not really setting the right tone. And from there, it was just a short jump to Friedrich Nietzsche, who I believe wrote the trailblazing book about stand-up comedy, Beyond Good and Evil Humor. But again, Nietzsche is complicated, but you can bet if he were still alive, he'd have a comedy special on Netflix and a podcast on Spotify. Another issue we ran into was that no one really felt any comments that would bring enough heat to stir fry, saute, or braise you, let alone cook you. I heard a lot of, well, I can't think of anything to poke fun about. And I can think of things I really appreciate about Rabbi Sacks, but nothing really spicy. So it's clear that one of your major failings as a rabbi over the past 10 years is that you have not stocked the larder with enough ingredients to cook up heated remarks. Not enough oil to fry you, or even a latke. Some people felt because you were so sweet and caring, they might be able to come up with something close to a sufgani yolk, but not a roast. And even those folks were worried that their thoughts would be half-baked. No, you chose to be here. In fact, you paid to be here. Therefore, over the next decade, we'd appreciate it if you could work on this so that for your 20th anniversary roast, people will have the proper material. People were also worried about the tone, and even though we're a Reformed congregation, they wanted what they said to be kosher. So it occurred to me that Houston, we might have a problem. And not really being familiar with roast, when the rabbi asked me if I would participate, I did what any person on the spectrum would do. I spent a lot of time watching roasts on YouTube. And I learned a lot about these affairs, and I was mortified. I soon discovered that these roasts are filled with profanity. At one time it got so bad, my mother came over and washed my ears out. So, who taught you to listen to such language? And then there's all the sexual innuendo that's tossed around, but that's only by the subtle speakers. There were cruel comments about the honorees' nasty confrontations with the laws and highly publicized affairs, dozens of jokes focused on trips in and out of addiction recovery centers and bankruptcy court. Thanks for giving us so much material to work with tonight. Would it have killed you to have hiked the Appalachian Trail instead of walking the Portland trails? Or to have an anti-Semitic rant a la Mel Gibson when being pulled over for a DUI violation? Or even a little whoopee moment? But no, Rabbi Sacks, you couldn't be bothered to do any of that for us. And then there was my mother's reaction when she first heard about this idea, and that I was going to be the MC. She kept suggesting other formats. What about This Is Your Life? You get lots of people from throughout the rabbi's life talk about him. Or you can make it like a Jeopardy game and people could be in teams and answer questions about the rabbi and his 10 years at Bet Ha'am. I finally caught on to the fact that my mother didn't think I was funny. And she came out and said, your brother would be perfect. He's really entertaining. And what if no one likes you or thinks you're funny? And I responded, it'd be just like high school. Hold on, I'm getting a call. Hi, Mom. Yes, we are still doing the roast. It's great that you have another idea for the format. The Westminster Dog Show, where we have dogs come in with signs about what we love about Rabbi Sacks. Yeah, because dog is God backwards. We'll be keeping with a religious theme. Mom, I'm a little busy right now. With what? I'm seeing the vent. And yes, I do remember that David would be funny. I love you too. Anyway, just to review, this is the event whose name should not be named. No one wants to roast you. You have no scandals. And there's an MC whose own Jewish mother doesn't think he's funny. Despite all of these obstacles, we continue to cook up ideas for this evening. We circled around to the idea of a roast like a chicken on a rotisserie. Now, despite the Levy Days Book annual event, Jews don't really go whole hog for barbecue. But there is the question of whether one should boil or roast sacrificial animals. And in Parshat Bo, Moses conveys the commandment from God to the Jews that on the night the angel of death is going to arrive in Egypt, the Jews should prepare the lamb, sheep, or goat. And I'm not kidding you, by roasting it. And yet there is still rabbinical debate about this issue of roasting because frankly it wouldn't be a Jewish conversation if there weren't an argument. As we know, Jews love to argue, and the two quickest ways to be rescued from a desert island are either to play solitaire or to have a Jew express a point of view. You'll soon have a person join you on the island to tell you what your next solitaire move should be, or a million of folks arriving to disagree with you. Way better than AAA or the Coast Guard. Nevertheless, what I learned is that the Rambam and Rabbi Evan Ezra come down on the side of roasting. And who am I to argue with these big minds? So tonight we roast. Our goal is to honor Rabbi Sacks for his 10 years of incredible service to Bet Ha'am. Everyone who is speaking tonight has come to honor Rabbi Sacks out of love, admiration, and appreciation. Plus, Sylvia promised every speaker a dozen Hamantashen and a bottle and a shepherd's. Jews will do anything if food is involved. We plan to have a few laughs. Perhaps the emphasis should be placed on the word few, because we crammed 20 minutes of incredible hilarity into an hour's production. Think of tonight's event in terms of a toaster. In our tributes of Rabbi Sacks, we're aiming for that sweet spot, that perfectly golden piece of toast, neither underdone nor charred. We are trying for what I like to call troasts, a kinder, gentler roast. So in the words of that great Motown philosopher, Marvin Gaye, let's get it on. In the course of my research, I discovered that the Friar Club roasts always have a big opening musical number. And I thought, I can do that. And then I said,
your brother can do it better.
I can't. And yes, my brother can, but he wouldn't be the first to admit it. But I know someone who can, my good buddy, Peter Scott. And as we started to collaborate on this song, Peter kept asking great questions. What tone are we after? Can we make fun of the rabbi's mustache? His height? His hairline? Each time we agreed we probably should stay away from that. And I could tell that Peter's hope that we could craft the perfect roasting song was receding faster than a middle-aged Jewish man's hairline. But Peter had this apt analogy. We're going for tofurkey. It's savory, but clean, a little spicy, but prudent. It's the healthy choice. And this seemed a far better analogy than a turducken, an unholy alliance akin to Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. So without further ado, here is our number, and it's a sing-along. Most of you should have it. I'll sing it. You know, with my singing, it doesn't really matter.
Here we go.
So in Rabbi Sachs' interview for Bet, he talked a lot about the Qumran His rabbinate was going to focus on social justice, and he laid out a vision about incorporating many ideas and many people. And he selected excellent people to help lead, including our next roaster. She's the gold standard for organization. She has this incredible big picture vision, offering the clarity of a giant stadium screen. And so without further ado, we define Dana Gold.
All right, I cannot compete with that. But I do have a roast toast, so we'll do what I can. All right, so when Robert Morrison, my husband, and I joined Beth in 2010, when we were asked to fill out the member questionnaire about our interests or skills for possible volunteer opportunities, we joked at the time that I could run the hostility committee. Other Jews like me, not Robert, that were generally hostile towards all organized religion, even as we embrace our Jewish identities. Now, Robert, a religion professor, encouraged me yet again to take class. In 2011, I finally took Robert's advice, signing up for a class offered by Rabbi Sachs, the Intro to Judaism or something like that. And unfortunately, between being busy with a 3-year-old and juggling work, and with all of the others in the class seemingly totally unhostile to Judaism and religion, it wasn't the right time or fit for me, and probably them too. Rabbi Sachs understood, and yet did note that my understanding of Judaism was about stuff that where the 12-year-old boy was at. So one access point to be for me to Judaism, however, has always been through the line of social justice, to which I've dedicated my entire professional life. I remember when Robert and I were planning our wedding back in Walla Walla, Washington in 2006, and I, as a lawyer, had always thought I'd be married by a judge. So not wanting to marry before gay marriage was legalized, I felt very conflicted by our plans until Robert informed me that gay marriages have been recognized by Reform Judaism since the 70s. Point Judaism. A turning point came for me in December 2015, the end of the Obama era, as you fondly recall. In 2015, remember, even before the 2016 election, in the past 4+ years of national trauma, I was attending a morning session for religious school parents that Rabbi Sachs had begun convening to build community. My daughter at this point was 7 years old. I'd like to share with you now a letter that session prompted me to write with Rabbi Sachs' enthusiastic blessing to my fellow religious school parents. Hang in there. So December 1st, 2015. Greetings, fellow parents of children in Bethlehem's religious school. 2 Sundays ago, during the parent session of the Tikkun Olam program, Rabbi Sachs facilitated an opportunity for those of us present to introduce ourselves and to share what social justice issue gets us up in the morning and what keeps us up at night. While the Tikkun Olam theme for our kids focused on the concept of Sa'ar Chayim versus the animals, I was moved to hear fellow parents sharing deeply held concerns about the state of the world we live in and are raising our kids in. Gun violence, environmental damage, racism, income inequality, poverty and homelessness, the loss of childhood innocence and challenges presented by social media, attacks on public education and teachers, and the Syrian refugee crisis and Islamophobia, which I imagine for many of us triggered particularly intense feelings as we remember the history of persecution and prejudice suffered by Jews during the rise of Nazi Germany. I appreciated very much the opportunity, Rabbi Sachs, this is silverware. I appreciated the opportunity Rabbi Sachs created for us to begin to engage in a heartfelt and meaningful way among our unique cohort of families. Together, we are participating in a new curricular approach for the religious school focused on the Jewish value of Tikkun Olam. And while there has always been repair needed in the world, it feels, at least to me, that the need for repair has accelerated, and along with it, a shared sense of frustration and despair about how to respond in ways that are meaningful and effective. Being able to hear personally from so many of you about our shared desire for social justice and repair of the world revealed to me the importance of creating opportunities for Tikkun Olam, not just through the lens of our children's religious school education, but through our own experience as adult members of the Bethlehem community. Though truncated by time constraints, Rabbi Sachs's effort to share with us the historical roots of Tikkun Olam as a bedrock principle of Reform Judaism put a fine point on how a commitment to social justice is a central rather than ancillary aspect of our religion. Yet our congregation's expression of Tikkun Olam principles and practices needs attention and organization. The new religious curriculum is the first step, but our shared conversation of this past weekend reveals a need and perhaps a hunger for more thoughtful opportunities for adult engagement as well. People were crying at this session. Like they were all crying. It was like right after a shooting, I think it happened like that weekend before maybe. I mean, it was shooting after shooting. It was horrible. Anyway, inspired by Rabbi Sachs's invitation to instill the letter. I'm so sorry. Inspired. Robert's like, this is too long. I'm like, I don't care. Inspired by that invitation to invigorate the role of the social action committee in our congregation, I'm wondering if any of you would be interested in joining me in some first steps of simply exploring how we might create opportunities to integrate Tikkun Olam more formally and coherently into the adult experience of Beth Ha'am. I envision more discussion about specific issues of concern, discussion about how our identity as parents and as Jews informs our feelings about social justice issues and activities, brainstorming about how we might begin integrating Tikkun Olam opportunities for the adult membership. This is not funny. And perhaps some research into how other congregations approach social action programming. Okay, I'm just going to cut this. People called and responded, and they were psyched. Anyway, Rabbi Sachs opened the door for me to engage more fully with Reform Judaism in the way that spoke to my core self, through my hope rather than my hostility. In doing so, he gave me an opportunity to connect with so many of you in the Beth Ha'am community I did not know before. And by inviting my early engagement in the creation of the Tikkun Olam Task Force, which led to the establishment by the board of the Tikkun Olam Council, and a commitment to infusing Tikkun Olam into every aspect of the congregation, he created a place for me at Beth Ha'am, and for that I am deeply grateful. Even as a totally overly ambitious council structure, followed by the loss of COVID, shifted everyone's available focus, Rabbi Sachs has never wavered from his deep commitment to bringing Tikkun Olam into our congregation. This has ranged from helping drive our participation in the Family Promise program, housing refugee families, to sharing his moving calls to all of us after visiting the Legacy Museum in Montgomery with other faith leaders to actively not just fight systemic racism, but to deeply learn about and challenge the legacy of racism through reading groups, protests, and action initiatives, Squashing Roots, like we are on right now, with 7 years old again. Anyway. The list is too long to recount of Rabbi Sachs's contributions around Tikkun Olam, and I've already gone on 1,000 times too long myself. But I just want to say thank you on behalf of our entire congregation and certainly myself for ensuring that no matter the form or structure, because of your leadership, social justice stands as a touchstone that defines Beth Ha'am, and as such shapes all of us in the community. And for me, it has made me far less hostile towards religion. My hostility channeled more consistently towards the work of repairing the world. Thank you.
So,
Let your husband.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Another of the cornerstone of Rabbi Sachs rabbinate is his work with young people. During his 10 years with us, he has helped foster innovations in our religious education program, family programs, service participation, interactive immersive experiences. You've incorporated enriching weekend trips to New York and Boston for our students to better connect with the story of Jewish life in America. You've taken teens to Lataken, the Reform Action Center's social justice program. You've developed a Tot Shabbat program, and of course your incredible fashion sense. What says Rabbi more than a rainbow onesie? Essential An essential piece of our B'nai Mitzvah program is the big question. You ground an ancient rite with a contemporary question by each student. And it's also a sign of how seriously you take the questions of 13-year-olds. You conduct research and craft a thoughtful response to each query. So our next troaster is a young member of our congregation who has studied and learned with Rabbi Sachs and wishes to offer his heartfelt comments. Joining us all the way from tropical Cape Elizabeth is Matthew Berman.
Hi, my name is Matthew Berman. On behalf of my older sister, Isabel, my brother, Gabe, and my parents, and myself, we would like to thank Rabbi Sachs for providing us with his wisdom, guidance, and humor as we all went through Hebrew school and became a bat and bar mitzvah. We all feel a great connection to our Jewish heritage and to the greater Jewish community here in Portland. We especially appreciate his passion for social justice and diversity. We will take many lessons that we learned from Rabbi Sachs and use them to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next speaker needs no introduction, so I won't give one. Of course I will, because I love a microphone. Our world is filled with folks who are so well known, they go by a single name. And yet everyone recognizes them. Prince, Sade, the Donald, Oprah, Sting, Eminem, Banksy, Lord, Adele, Madonna, Beyonce, Confucius, Homer, not Simpson, Pele, Nas, and the list goes on. Bet Ha'am has someone like that who just happens to be our next roaster. Toby. Necessary. Everyone knows her, whether it's her presence in the garden, in the classroom, on the Gabai committee, at services, organizing our fabulous annual affairs. Tickets going on sale soon. She's had lots of affairs, comedic, dramatic, poetic. And when we roast her, we'll have plenty of material to take it away, Toby.
I don't know if I should be wearing a mask or not. How long does it take to roast a rabbi? Roastings, there are many kinds. So do you know why Rabbi Sachs invited us to roast him in the middle of a Maine winter? It was cheaper and quicker than going to Florida for some heat. Rabbi, I think you are at your best when you are challenged in your rabbinate to be courageous and creative. You arrived at Bet Ha'am at a pivotal time in my life. My late husband, Michael, was in the last months of his life. He was in and out of the hospital in those days, and you visited him each time. It couldn't have been easy. You never knew whether Michael would be taciturn or verbose. You never knew what you were going to encounter. Furthermore, Michael was an atheist, and he always let you know. Still, you built a relationship with him. One of your visits coincided with the beginning of residence training at Maine Medical Center. A new resident from India was interviewing Michael. You know, they have the new residents do that, teach them how to treat patients like human beings instead of patients. And and she asked him, well, what's your religion? And he said, I'm an atheist. A few minutes later, you showed up at the door of the hospital room and Michael introduced you as his rabbi, which I'm certain confused the poor new resident. But you had, in fact, become his rabbi. Can you tell I'm actually a little nervous about this? Michael wanted to be cremated. You respected his wishes and you supported my desire to respect his wishes as well. I later learned that not every rabbi would have done so. I will always be grateful for you that you did not introduce any internal conflict into what was already a difficult moment in my life. When the time came, you supported and helped create a service at the crematorium. Judaism has no such ritual or the appropriate liturgy. You conferred with Rosie Wall, my good friend, and also at the time, the Jewish chaplain in Portland. And the two of you thought that the closest liturgy would be to recite the Psalms that are usually said as one accompanies a person to burial. But those Psalms are loaded with God language, and they were not right for Michael, my atheist husband. So I asked if you'd let me take a stab at creating a service, and you encouraged me. There was no egotistical holding on to your first idea. You just, again, made it possible for me to go and be creative without introducing some kind of conflict into the moment. And in fact, you joined into the readings and led some of the service. After the service, you offered to stay with me as long as I wanted, and I thought to stay through the cremation. The undertaker said it would be about 4 hours. I knew I couldn't bear to stay that long. I put my hand and shed a tear on the cardboard casket and told Michael it was more like roasting a turkey than making a pizza. I had to go. You walked me out and with all the kindness in the world, and that was a wonderful gift. You were courageous, you were creative, and more than that, you were kind. I have been pleased to partner with you for more than 10 years on many courageous, creative endeavors, always wrapped in your kindness. And as for roasting, because it's COVID and it won't really take as long as a turkey, I'll stick around.
As I said, I've done a lot of research on roasts. And at one point, my very wise wife suggested that I look up rabbinic roasts rather than comedy roasts. And I discovered that all the roasts I could find were for rabbis leaving their congregations. So it didn't really matter what people said, the person was out the door. Not particularly helpful for this evening, as we wish for you to stay around. However, while searching, I did come across Hasidic comedians. Who knew they were so funny? And one of the jokes by this comedian named Modi, and spoiler alert, Modi really isn't Hasidic, but it's part of his shtick, but I digress. But I want to give him credit for this joke. I'll give you the short version because after all, we're Reform. We cut out what's not necessary. And you'll note that I've cut out the humor and the timing. A congregant goes to his rabbi and says, "Rabbi, my son has left the house and become a Christian." And the rabbi says, "Oh, my son has left the house and become a Christian too. Let's pray to God." And they pray, and God says, "Let me tell you about my son." What sets apart our next roaster from the folks in the joke is that when she says, "Let me tell you about my son," it's with immense pride for all of his accomplishment that he's a mensch, or at least I think that's what she's going to say. I haven't seen her comments. Maybe this is where it all comes out. The scandal, the family backbiting, better than the House of Windsor. Now there's a family prepared for a roast. But so is our next speaker, for she is a woman with razor sharp wit. So I welcome Andrea Schick.
Thank you, Andrew. What kind of mother would I be if I roasted my own son? But I will share with you two of his endearing qualities. First, he is always late. He was even late for his own birth. He did tell me recently that he has never been late when he has officiated at a wedding or funeral. I've decided that the next time I want him to be at my house on time, I'm going to tell him I'm getting married. He is also an excellent procrastinator. Jared, have you written your comments for tonight yet? But seriously, Judaism has always played a major role in Jared's life. He grew up in a town where there was barely a minyan. Looking back, it is very clear the direction Jared's life would take. It didn't take him long to identify with his Jewish heritage. When he was in elementary school, he wrote his Hebrew name to display for back to school night for the parents. I'm sure his Hebrew teacher would have been very proud, but this wasn't in Hebrew school. It was in his public school class. As a youngster, he was very active in Temple youth group activities. He and his friends at Temple formed the FNOC, Friday Night Own It Club. I think the food may have played a role in it, but they were there and they would gather together after services to enjoy time together. He was very active in all things nifty, the Reformed Jewish youth movement. It was here that his call to social justice began. When he went off to college, he majored in religion and participated in Hillel. He also spent several summers at URJ camp, encouraging youth in their Jewish identity. As you can see, his lifelong growing up centered around Judaism. Is it any wonder that he became a rabbi? I am so proud of you, Jared. Felling is putting it mildly. Thank you.
Well, you've set the bar pretty high for the rest of the evening. Bet Ha'am was founded as a place for all Jews, for all family types, for folks of different faiths. And we truly strive to live up to our name, House of the People. Time and again, people who come to worship with us, remark on our full participatory services, the way people go out of their way to make people feel welcome. Inspired by Rabbi Sachs, we've embraced the concept of radical hospitality, welcoming both the stranger and longtime members with the same warmth and joy. At my first board meeting, Rabbi Sachs was discussing this idea, which I took to heart because it's so important. Now, as an introvert, when my wife would take me to boat and events, she would always remind me that I had to talk to people. I had just planned on hanging out with the artichoke dip. Our next speaker will talk about the vital role Rabbi Sachs played as he embarked on his own spiritual journey. Ben May.
Hello, everyone. I promise I will not be nice. Mostly because I don't know how. So as it was said before, I am a convert to Judaism. So Rabbi Sachs and I actually have a lot in common, even though I grew up Christian. I'm gay, he's gay. I'm now Jewish, he's now Jewish. I'm beautiful, he's Jewish. And my mother is deeply suspicious of both of us. Going through my conversion process was very difficult because I had been rehearsing Judaism for about 5 years before I made the decision to settle down, go through the process. And I was so excited to find an open community that had a gay rabbi who was married with a son. This was huge for me. And then I started showing my friends pictures of my gay rabbi, and they were deeply disappointed. Would it kill you to sparkle a little? I'm not asking for a full Housewives of Portland moment, but some bedazzling on the kippah at least. Judaism is such a beautiful faith because it recognizes the sweet and the bitter of our lives. Sometimes things are bad, sometimes things are good, and still we persist. That's really like any service led by Rabbi Sacks. His sermons are definitely the sweet. His singing voice is definitely the bitter. And being a convert, a lot of my friends and family back in East Texas asked me all sorts of inane questions about Judaism. And often I get asked, so why do people hate Jews so much? And then I show them a picture of Rabbi Sacks, and they're like, oh, we get it. And I say this because I know how hard he works to be awake. He is such a giving and caring person. And I'm so appreciative of everything he's given me, but it's more fun to be me. And I know earlier we said that we're not going to make any personal comments, but I'm a convert, so I'm going to do it anyway. My favorite thing about Rabbi Sacks is his dedication to follow the traditions of Judaism. Our people have wandered in the desert for 40 years to get where they were going, and so has his hair. I'm getting to the nice part. It's just. So, to anyone watching, I want you to know I deeply regret letting Rabbi Sacks lead me through conversion. But in all seriousness, you have been such a fount of wisdom and support. When I went home for the first time since going through my conversion, because of COVID, there had been a delay, and because of electing Trump, I had really wanted a delay. I was going home for the first time to Texas. I was very nervous. I'm from a tiny town where there are no Jews, just me on an island. And on Thanksgiving Day, Rabbi Sacks reached out to me and said, I'm thinking of you, I'm supporting you, I know Hanukkah's starting, let me know if you need anything. My family was shocked by this. It is in his giving and generous nature that even across the country, in the midst of a pandemic, he's reaching out to every congregant, or maybe just the special ones. But that sort of support means a lot as someone who doesn't have a Jewish family, who doesn't have an innate support system in this faith. So while I've made fun of you, which I will continue to do, even not at a roast, thank you so much for all you've given me, our friendship, your compassion, and finally letting me be the prettiest gay man in the room.
So there are several contrasts between this evening and the show Seinfeld, that staples of 90s must-see TV and now syndication. The most obvious difference is one is funny and the other isn't, and I'll let you decide which is which. Another is the odious character Newman. For those of you who never experienced the 90s, not a big loss except for my wedding and the birth of my first child, whenever Jerry Seinfeld ran into this person, he would say Newman with utter contempt. However, at Bet Ha'am, when we say Newman, we speak with joy, gratitude, and admiration. We, of course, are referring to the one, the only, the inimitable Sharon Newman. She has filled so many roles at Bet Ha'am: the B'nai Mitzvah tutor, committee member, board president, and musician singer extraordinaire. She contributes to our community in so many ways. She has also attended Hava Nashira, the Reform Movement's worship and music conference with Rabbi Sachs. And over the past 10 years, she's collaborated with him on making our services more beautiful with new music and her lovely singing. She contributes to our community in so many ways. I've already said that. Her guitar and Perry's violin have enriched our services, and tonight, Sharon will contribute to our festivities with her remarks.
Is this a look anymore? I first met Rabbi Sachs when he was a candidate for his current position at Bet Ha'am. I was not a member of the search committee. However, they invited me to attend in-person group interviews with the 3 finalists the committee was considering. Among other things, the candidates were to lead us in song. My job was to provide feedback on their musical ability. I recall 2 things about that evening. First, Rabbi Sachs brought homemade cookies, chocolate chip, I believe, thereby demonstrating beyond any doubt his deep understanding of and appreciation for Bet Ha'am's distinctive community culture. Having deftly softened us up, he then proceeded to teach us the Ladino Ein Kelohim. He got the job, and the rest is history. Rabbi Sachs has encouraged me to deepen my knowledge of Jewish liturgical music and worked with me to bring it to the congregation. I am deeply grateful that he invited me to attend Hava Nashira with him twice over the past 10 years. For those of you who may not know, Hava Nashira, which means come let us sing, is the Reform Movement's music camp for Jewish song leaders. Everyone from Jewish summer camp music counselors, Hillel staffers, and religious school music teachers to rabbis, cantors, cantorial soloists, and folks like me who just want to help out at services. It's like Woodstock for Jewish music nerds, but with kosher food and beds. The rock stars of the Jewish music world were there, leading us in the classics and sharing new material. It was a sleep optional experience since we started singing at 7:30 a.m. with morning prayers, finished our last song session about 10 p.m., and then the open mic began and went until the last performer had shared their talents. I don't know because I didn't last till the very end, but I did stay up for Rabbi Sachs's midnight a cappella rendition of Right Field, for which he received wild applause. I still have the recording on my phone. Rabbi Sachs and I collected one great tune after the next to bring back home with us and share with you. It was an unforgettable and transformative experience, and I am so grateful that he made it happen. He is still sending me melodies that are new, at least to me, for consideration. Thank you, Rabbi, for enriching my Jewish experience through music.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the defining traits of Rabbi Sacks is how seriously he takes young people. This extends to how someone wishes to structure their B'nai Mitzvah service, whether it's a service built around poetry, a congregational trip to Israel, or music. There is an opportunity for people to express who they are, and Rabbi Sacks, you're all in. Lucinda Hirschkorn was able to incorporate her love of the cello into her bat mitzvah, and tonight we are so incredibly lucky to have Lucinda and her sister Hannah perform a piece by Ravel. It's an appropriate piece to play in honor of a Spanish major, someone who studied abroad, and someone who has introduced Ladino melodies to our worship. And so without further ado, the Sisters Hirschkorn.
Hi, everybody. Thank you we're really honored to play for you guys today. And thank you, Rabbi Sacks, for everything you do. This is Ravel's piece de forme in Habanera.
Thank you, Lucinda and Hannah. For many in the main Jewish community, our next troaster is well known, greatly admired, and extremely beloved. She's known for her warmth, wealth of Judaic knowledge, and this goes without saying, her wicked sense of humor. During Rabbi Sacks' 10 years in Maine, Rabbi Braun has had the opportunity to collaborate with him and even to marry Kirk and him. Now, as the grandson of a rabbi, I used to hear all the time about my grandfather marrying people. And as a child, I didn't understand how he could be married to so many people. Tonight, Rabbi Braun comes to praise Caesar, Rabbi Sacks.
Hardly see me above this thing. Oh my God, you guys, and you, oh my God. First of all, you're hysterical. Second, I mean, at any rate, you're hysterical. We all know how wonderful Rabbi Sacks is. I did think I was toasting Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, and then I found out that it was Rabbi Sacks, which is actually easier to toast. But in any case, where do I join the synagogue? Just amazing. So you, oh my God, this has just been a wonderful night for me just to listen to people tell about you. So I'll start with the roast. And I'm a vegetarian. So, you know, I really have nothing that I can roast Rabbi Sacks on, except for, if any of you, I don't know if it's only non-members who are on your Facebook page, but I happen to be one of those people. And I'm not at all jealous about his perfect marriage, his amazing son, the amazing trips that they take, the birthday parties that last for years with all sorts of surprises, so that I'm surprised every hour at what new and amazing things are. No, I'm not jealous about that at all. I am not jealous that he seems to be able to balance rabbinate and family, or that everybody loves him. No, I'm not jealous about that at all. And I don't really hate him 2 days a year, but I kind of do. And those 2 days are the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And I really despise him on the last day of Passover. All the other times, even though I'm very jealous, he's just perfect and wonderful, and a wonderful colleague. And I really love the relationship. And I really love, I mean, I can't believe this, but I've been here for 27 years. And so I was thinking, maybe I'll tell stories of when I was there for 10 years. No, that would be like dirty laundry. I want to. But 10 years is a really perfect, they still like you. That is really. So I did think that, and then from year 8 to year 10 is a freaking pandemic where you have to, there's a word that I hate even more than the 8th day of Pesach, which is pivot. If I hear that word pivot one more time, I'm going to pivot my head off. In any case, you do great pivots. And Beit Ha'am has pivoted well. And we've all, I mean, what a time to be a rabbi, what a time to be a congregation and Jewish. And I mean, it's just, these are really, really hard times, which is one of the reasons I was so honored that you asked me to come into the enemy camp here to talk. So I have a little Dvar Torah, very little. And that is, so, you know, with gematria, what adds up to 10? So I thought about this for a while. And first of all, I'm not very good with math, but I realized hey plus hey equals 10.
And I thought, maybe this is God telling us, ha ha. And then on those days that are really good, going ho ho. Or maybe ha ha. And so my hope is for the next 120 years that that we will hear a lot of ha ha and collaborate more and be together more. And I will stop looking at your Facebook page to live my life through you. And we'll really continue to celebrate with such a wonderful congregation. I mean, really, it is, we are only enriched in this community by all the great rabbis and the great congregations. And even when we're jealous, or even when we go, huh, and then do the same thing they do because we knew it was a good idea, it's all out of love and community. And it's really an honor to be here. It's an honor to celebrate you. And I really wish I could hug you without this mask on, but I'm gonna hug you with it on. And I feel like I have Sharon's whatever fashion statement that I wish I had, or Dan, is that your name? Wish I had your fashion statement. But anyway, I'll give you a big hug. Mazel tov.
It's only because of our budget shortfall that we can celebrate Passover for just 7 days. If we had the money, we'd do it for 8. Now, what did you get your rabbi for his 10th anniversary?
Nothing.
That is what we thought. A Google search was not helpful. Perhaps I should have used the Jewish search engine Google. Among the hits I came up with were, what do you give a rabbit with diarrhea? What to give a rabbit with constipation? And what to give a rabbit to chew on? Obviously, Google needs to refine its logarithm for searches on rabbis. While I discovered that rabbit is not the plural of rabbi, there were no suggestions that really fit the occasion. Hadassah magazine had an article about unusual gifts that rabbis have received. Banjos, protein powders, 24 eggs, a McDonald's napkin dispenser. Rabbi Menachem Posner writes on Chabad.com that giving gifts on Shabbat can be problematic because of various religious prohibitions. It was unfortunate we couldn't use that loophole because this event is being held after sundown. So we had to think of something. Rabbi Sachs didn't want anything. And we thought, well, we could give him plenty of that. He wanted all the proceeds from this evening to go to the general fund to help close our deficit, which is in keeping with his generous nature. But we wanted to recognize this significant anniversary in some way. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sylvia Most, our president, to present our present.
Okay, Rabbi, we have 2 gifts for you. So we'll give you this one first. So we have very talented members of our congregation, and among them is Bonnie Spiegel, who can you hear me? Bonnie Spiegel, who makes beautiful certificates that we give our bar and bat mitzvah students, and she created this one for you. And I'll read. It says, Toda Rabah. With gratitude, we present this certificate of appreciation to Rabbi Jared Sachs
in recognition for the 10 years of joy, learning, and enrichment he has brought to our community and to the members of our congregation. Our second gift is not here, but our intention is in here. And we have talented members of our congregation who, one who is going to create the actual thing and one who created the model for us. So Jeremy created the model and Benjamin is going to create the actual. So this is a mini version of a small ark that we can use for outdoor services, because one of the, as you like to say, the silver linings of the pandemic is we've discovered new things, and among them is we enjoy having services out in the courtyard, and we don't have an appropriate way to bring the tour out there. So we're going to design it together and create it this spring.
It's awesome. Thank you.
While you're up there,
All right.
you promised your mother you had your remarks made.
Which I finished at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. I just want to start out by thanking all of you for being here, our host committee, those of you here in the sanctuary, those of you who bought raffle tickets hoping to be in the sanctuary, and all of you joining us on Zoom. This has really, really been wonderful. I also really want to thank the organizers. You've done an incredible job with tonight. And in particular, I want to thank you for not planning it for a Shabbat service, because we know that none of you would have been here. The rabbinate is sometimes a thankless profession. So tonight has truly bolstered my spirits. You'd be surprised the kind of critiques that I sometimes receive. I once learned the word sartorial from a bride. She was concerned that my white dress shirt, of which I own a sum total of none, would clash with her off-white wedding dress. So she made a sartorial request to buy me a shirt and tie. It was a lovely idea and a lovely gesture. Actually, I meant to take this off before because I need it for the next line. When I grew my mustache, Toby told me that it needed to go, which is why it's still here. Toby also told me that I need to change my picture on the website because, as she says, I look exhausted. Well, it's honest. I'm always exhausted. It's been a really wonderful 10 years here so far. In these 10 years, not only have we paid off our mortgage, but we've also successfully dissolved not only a social action committee, but a Tikkun Olam council too. Our adult learning programs have waxed and waned, but Torah study has remained a constant. But based upon the behavior around that table, calling it adult learning is kind of a stretch. I've been privileged to work with 2 incredible Jewish educators, and I've realized the secret to their success: a strong military background. We have many great committees to do the work of our congregation as well, and 3 of them even have members. Over the past 10 years, we've observed many holidays, and my favorites are always Christmas and Easter. I at least know that I can count on 2 days off. In the pandemic, we've created new traditions and learned new skills together, like how to mute and unmute. Now, if I could only figure out how to do that in person. As your rabbi, I've been privileged to be part of many of your life cycle events, and I've endured being a part of the rest of them. I've had the privilege of working with some wonderful administrators and executive directors, almost as many as the number of years I've been here. I will say in all seriousness that our office staff has been largely consistent, mostly because she won't do change, Terry. Our custodial staff is really the saving grace of this place, though.
They make all the magic work behind the scenes, and the real magic is they do it with even more bosses than I have. It would be remiss not to mention Karen, who, when she had her limit with me, would put up a no rabbi sign, banning me from bothering her. Then she put up the ultimate no rabbi sign and abandoned me. Thanks, Karen. I'm excited to work with Dylan now. She seems wonderful. I mean, she hasn't quit yet. I've been blessed to work with some wonderful presidents of our congregation as well. It was a lot of fun to have Lisa Pierce as my first president at Beth Ham. Everything was dinosaurs and Muppets. Come to think of it, that's the makeup of our board too. At times I've been accused of centering LGBTQIA+ issues and maybe even trying to make us a gay congregation. Having Lisa Munderback as president was as far as I've gotten so far, but I'll keep trying. I do want to thank Ben, however, for joining us. You've exponentially increased the number of gay men in the congregation, I think by 20%. It's not a far leap for Andrew Kosak to be committed to congregational life. There are lots of rabbis in his family, not only his grandfather. I imagine perhaps when you were a small boy, you told your mother you wanted to be a rabbi, and she said, let's go talk to grandpa. You maybe asked him, what do you do all week besides lead Shabbat services? And he said, you don't want to be a rabbi, you want to be a synagogue president. When Kirk and I bought our house in North Deering, we were excited to be living near Nathan and Sarah Zanton. But as soon as his presidency ended, they moved all the way across Portland to the Eastern Prom, presumably to get farther away from me. Lynn had other tricks for dealing with me: scotch, rum, and bourbon. Maybe we should have just started every meeting with a shot. It wouldn't have made the pandemic any worse. And while Sylvia and I have only just started to working together, I really do appreciate the opportunity to be your partner here. I'm particularly grateful for your leadership, Sylvia, because many times people have suggested to me that Reform Judaism is just the Democratic Party with holidays. Well, at least while you're president, I can say, see, no, it's not. I'm really honored by the folks who have joined us tonight. Rabbi Braun, it's so lovely to have you here. I think the last time you were here was when Kirk and I got married. Thank you for only showing up at Beth Ham when it's all about me. That's what I call Kavod Harav. My parents are here too tonight, as you know. My mother is so supportive, seriously more than any other mother I know. She'd show up to support me if she found out I got an aisle seat. Mom, if you get any more involved in the congregation, they might nominate you to the board. My dad and Doug are also here. I'll never forget my first Thanksgiving home from college when I shared at the Thanksgiving dinner table that I wanted to become a rabbi. And my father and my grandmother from opposite ends of the table announced, "Rabbi? That's no job for a Jew." I want to thank Kirk as well. Early in our relationship, you took a chance and followed me halfway across the country to start a new life on a distant shoreline. You've been a confidant, a sounding board, and arms to fall into. And most importantly, you've put to words all the things that I can't say about these people. As one of my professors at HEC said, Judaism is wonderful. It's the Jews that are a problem. There's more that I would love to say, but Kirk warned me that if I include any of it, this would quickly turn from a roast into a send-off. So I'll have to save that for the next 10 years.
Good thing you stopped when you did. The torches. Okay, so where are we? We're moving into our third hour. And we're just getting warmed up. Actually, we're coming to the end. So I want to thank you for joining us, whether in person, on Zoom, on the International Space Station or from the Russian-Ukrainian border. Special shout outs to Dana McCabe for running all the technology. Lynn Mansfield for her incredible support and effort with organization and putting together Rabbi Sachs' tribute book. Bonnie Spiegel for creating the beautiful certificate. Jeremy Moser and Ben Grant for collaborating on the design and model of our future outdoor park. Paul McCartney and John Lennon. The members of the organizing committee, Laura Dietland, Kate Hirsch, Leslie Levy, Rachel Reed, Sylvia Most, Diane Newman, and of course our wonderful troasters and musicians. And thank you for all of the sponsors this evening. There are two who are Igor from Young Frankenstein's Favorite, Anonymous, Toby Rosenberg, Lynn Urbach and Jerry Olshan, Kate and Sam Hirsch, Jane Slovan and Joe Pye, Donna Landau, Dana Gold and family, Elaine and Steve Smith, Catherine Scher, Andrea Schick, David and Cindy Stein, Elaine and Gordon Fallender, Sharon and Perry Newman, Diane Newman, Kai and Bill Leffler, Rachel Reed, and someone named Andrew and Jennifer Kosak. So thank you all very much. If you run into my mother, would you lie and tell her I was sort of funny?